Hello, this is Dread from Apprentice's Corner, and today's video topic is going to be a video about Shatter Strike Spell Blade. It's going to be Roudy's Shatter Strike Spell Blade this time. He is rank 1 hardcore with this build currently, so I decided to bring it into SSF and build it myself. So far, the build has been doing amazingly. Crit Shatter Strike is back in the meta. It is a meta build now. It is definitely showing some, a lot of performance. Just getting to wave 200 in 24 hours shows that the build, well, 199, but shows that the build can work really well in such a limited time space, considering that it was just one day. Now, could you imagine if I spent like 2 weeks playing the build? Now, it is mainly built around the new node that Shatter Strike has, which gives you 200% critical strike multiplier if you are wielding a sword. This is a lot of your damage because it bumps up your crit multi all the way up to like 400% already. Absolutely amazing. Now, the damage numbers may not seem high, but considering that I am at, 6 attacks per second, like 6 attacks per attack, right? And I attack like 3 times per second or something like that. It is actually indeed a lot of DPS. Now, as well, this build is a lot more based on tankiness than it is damage, so it won't be dealing as much damage as other mage builds, but it has a lot of layered defenses, meaning like block, dodge, critical strike avoidance, lots of ward. All of these kind of combine into a really strong build. So Urzel, it is technically rank 5 on the ladder right now. I got to 199. The person who's at the top, the I am rat dude, the 271, the Lich, he was confirmed a cheater, I believe, so he does not count for the ladder. So Mao and Tunk are on the top. Hopefully they start, taking cheating seriously sometime soon. Hopefully, who knows? But so the biggest issue the build has is actually just damage. So I'm running around 30% critical strike chance. We could be way higher with something like a Raider Axe that gives us 5% base crit, but we lose the crit multi from the weapon. So this is one of those builds where you could spend about 2 weeks investing in and still have 2 weeks to invest into it. By far, where I'm at right now is nowhere near where you could be at in the end. Enchant Weapon definitely helps out with the damage department, though, thank God. But like I said, generally, maybe in the end, you would want to use a Raider Axe that gives you 5% base crit, which will work for a Shatter Strike, and you run base crit and flat. And then what you would do is you just run more crit multi on gear, but that would require you to have open slots. Now, this build utilizes Fire Shield to cap its Ellie res so that we can actually save our prefixes for int and dex, because if you did not know, dexterity gives you +1 flat cold damage per point of dex, right? And then of course, it also gives you a 4% increased damage multiplier as well, meaning that if you have a 10 dex, you have 10 flat cold and 40% increased cold damage, which is absolutely amazing. So with this build, you're stacking as much dex and intelligence as possible. You kind of want to be like 60-60 with both of them. It'll be a little bit difficult in the end game, but thanks to how much Ellie res Fire Shield gives you, pretty much caps your Ellie res with one node. One node on its tree. Absolutely amazing. Probably will get nerfed or removed. I believe Fire Shield is one of the skills they're probably going to remove. But as of right now, you can use it to cap your Ellie res. Like I said, though, this would not be probably SSF viable if it was not for Fire Shield. It would not be anywhere near where it is now. But there's a lot of other mechanics this build utilizes, like for instance, Flame Ward. What's really nice about that is we have Flame Ward cast when damage stun. Why is that? Because usually with this kind of build, when you die, it's because you took 2 big hits. Now, when you take a big hit in this kind of build, you get stunned because you only have 700 HP, right? So when you get hit to like low HP out of your ward, you will get stunned and Flame Ward will instantly trigger. Now, people are like, why don't you just run Flame Ward on your bar? Well, it's because, well, I don't know about you guys, but I do not have inhuman reflexes, and it gives you an instant damage out as soon as you get stunned, which is like when you take a lot of damage. It has saved me a lot of times, like a lot of times, like amazing amount of times. It also saves us a spot on our bar because guess what? When you have the cast when stun mod, you also do not have to run it on the bar, which means I can run teleport instead and still retain some of my maneuverability because we are using 6 skills in total, 5 that are spec'd, and of course the last one, teleport, being unspec'd. With this build, we do utilize Mana Strike to gain our mana back. Is very strong because we can run a lot of mana gain. It's very fast because of the attack speed we have. Absolutely amazing. But if you do not like Mana Strike and its playstyle, then you will not like this build. Now, with that being said, let's get into the leveling guide here. All right, we are in game now. This is I Forgot to Unmute. Why it's named that is because this was supposed to be an interview build. Like I was supposed to interview with the rank 1 hardcore player, Roudy. But what happened was I forgot to unmute my mic. So now I just leveled the build instead and we're good to go. Like I said, this is Roudy's build. All like everything goes to Roudy. I did pioneer the crit version though. He was running a non-crit version with wing guards, but this is the crit version, which does a bit more damage and is a lot better for a soft core playstyle. Like I said, for hardcore, you don't really care about damage. Now, mainly, like I said, this is just your regular Shatter Strike build, but instead of building around Frostbite, because Frostbite has been nerfed significantly this patch due to it removing its cold pen. Now, it's just simply good with crit because of all the changes, especially this specific one where we get 200% critical strike multiplier with a sword, and we are in fact utilizing a sword. Now, let's get it into the leveling guide. So to level this build, what you want to do is in town, when you get to level 5, you want to, like when you get to 5 points, you want to grab Glacier. And when you do the Artem quest, like the quests for Urza's Ledger, instead of giving it to Urza, you're going to give it to Artem. I'll show you in a second here. Let me get over here. So when you get to the council chambers, you are going to go up through the upper left passage and you're going to go to Urza's ledger room up in here. You're going to come back and you're going to, instead of give it to Urza, you're going to give it to Artem. And if you give it to Artem, he will drop a unique called the Gambor's Fallacy. Now, the Gambor's Fallacy, what it reads is it gives you about 100% base critical strike chance if you have not crit recently. And why that's important is because while you're leveling, you're not actually kind of like, you're not attacking things that often, right? Because of mana and all that. So generally you want to utilize it to give yourself a really big hit. Now, what we do for leveling is we take 5 points into the intelligence here, Arcanist, and then we spec into Glacier. Now, how we spec Glacier here, I'll show off. Mainly, we take 3 points into Frost Script, 1 point into Fading Echoes. This will be very important later. 2 points into Breaking Point, 1 point into Greater Destruction, 4 points into more damage against rares and bosses, where the damage actually matters. And then, of course, like I said, just more large hit damage. You want the large hit damage because we're scaling the skill. Now, the way this works is you're attacking with Glacier, and the biggest explosion happens first. So normally Glacier does 1, 2, 3, but with the one node here, the Fading Echoes, it explodes in reverse order. What that means is the big explosion happens first. And as you can tell, the AoE is absolutely humongous. So what we do is every 4 seconds we attack, and we do like a 1k crit with Glacier thanks to Gambor's Fallacy and the large amount of damage that Glacier gives in the early game. Of course, you upgrade weapons as you move on. And of course, what you really want to grab after that is preparation. Why is preparation important? Well, for leveling, it's absolutely insane with Glacier because every 3 seconds your next spell deals increased damage and has a chance to slow enemies on hit. You're waiting 4 seconds anyways for Gambler's Fallacy, so this is a free 200% damage in the beginning. Absolutely amazing for any leveling build with Glacier. So Glacier plus Gambler's Fallacy plus preparation is the way to go. Now, how do we deal with mana? Because Glacier costs a lot of mana. Well, we will be utilizing Mana Strike. You can use this exact same tree to level with your Glacier because it's exactly what you want. So don't have to change this at all. You want this 100%. As much mana as possible on swing. So like I said, so that one swing gives you everything back, right? And that's it. That's it for leveling. And then you level all the way to monoliths. And then once you feel comfortable to switch over to Shatter Strike with this build, as I'll show you, you can switch over to it. You can even run like more stuff like the cast speed, the crit. You can run all of these same nodes. And of course, with Sorcerer, instead of putting points into Spellblade, you can actually put points into Sorcerer instead. Like for instance, spell damage, not the spell critical strike chance because you're using Gambler's Fallacy, but maybe the spell damage, get the ward gain on skill 40 plus cost, the cast speed, all this. You can grab all of it. And then once you get to Monolith, what you do is you just go to the purple chick here, the purple chick. You respec all your points in Sorcerer, then you respec into Spellblade when you feel comfortable with it. Now, that's pretty much it for the leveling guide. It's actually one of the smoothest leveling experiences you'll ever have if you just simply set up Gambler's Fallacy plus Glacier plus preparation. Absolutely amazing. Now, let's move on to the skills, shall we? All right, now we can talk about the skills here. First off, we're talking about Shatter Strike. I'm just going to go quick with these. You want to take 2 points here into Lingering Chill, travel points. 1 point here, travel point. You want to take 2 points here. This is the main reason why you are playing Shatter Strike. It increases the mana cost significantly, but it makes it so every single time you attack, it recasts, meaning that you could move away. So every single time you hold down the right click button, you will attack 6 times. That is why this is so strong, is this node right here. Now, of course, we take 4 points into Ice Blink because we get attack speed if we are not using a wand or a two-hander, which doesn't matter because we are utilizing a sword. And this node works for the Raider Axe version as well, which I'll talk about later. But mainly, you just want as much attack speed as possible, as that's how we scale our ward and damage. And we take 5 points into Icy Flow because you do not want your Shatter Strike to cost much mana, so you want that specifically. It also gives us ward every single time we cast Shatter Strike. Now, of course, we take 2 points into the area and the Cold Pen. This is all you need for Cold Pen. Probably get Cold Pen on Amulet, but this is pretty much all you need. And then 4 points around the Critical Strike multiplier with a sword. This is very important for this version where you run a sword, because it gives you a lot of damage for a small amount of points. Now, if you were to run the Raider Axe version, you would have to run more crit multiplier for 1. And 2, you would have to run 3 more points into Shiver, and then 1 more point into Ice Blink, but it's doable. You'll have more consistent crits. You will not have as strong of crits, but it will definitely be more consistent. Now, after that, we can talk about Mana Strike. Mana Strike's pretty simple. This is like your usual setup for Mana Strike mana gain. Take 3 points into mana gain, 2 points into attack speed, 5 points into area because we want it always to hit whenever we attack, 4 points into percentage mana gain, 5 points into mana gain on crit, and 1 point into the base critical strike chance because we are not using Mana Strike for damage. We just want the base critical strike chance. And since we have so much percentage crit, right? This is always crits. Our Mana Strike literally always crits no matter what. Now, it is 100% crit, so it's always giving us mana. So let me show you how much mana we get back. Like, we get like 70 mana back, I think? Yeah, like about 70 mana back. Like I said, absolutely amazing. Scales off of attack speed as well, which we're scaling with Shatter Strike anyways in Spellblade. Now for the third skill, we're going to talk about Flame Ward. Flame Ward, you take 2 points here travel, 1 point here travel, take the Flame Wind stun. This works like cast when damage taken from PoE pretty much. Just treat it like as such. 2 points travel into Fuel the Flames, 1 point into the charge, 5 points into the less hit damage taken, meaning that we just take less damage overall. So we take a lot of less damage. So whenever we get chunked, we do not take that much damage. 3 points into duration, so it lasts longer. 3 points into the ward per sec, and 2 points into the ward retention. So, when we do it, we get a lot of ward. Now, like I said, our flame ward is off our bar. We do not need it on our bar for it to function properly, which is why this is so strong, such a strong combination, because we're utilizing 6 skills for the price of 1. Because if you did not know, teleport is just as good unspec'd as it is spec'd. So obviously you could spec it. You could definitely spec it instead of something like Fire Shield, but you will have to scrap for the extra resistance, right? Instead of Fire Shield. Fire Shield, you just want to take the 5 points here for the Ellie res. This caps our Ellie res, just so you know. This might get removed / nerf, so be ready for that. So be ready to change over your gear when that happens. And of course, 5 ward per second, 1 point into Frostburn Shield, so we get 40% increase cold damage, and then of course we get 5 points into the lasting defense, so it lasts a very long time. You want to make sure that this is up 100% of the time, because without it, we have no resistance for our Ellie damage, so very important. Now, that's pretty, and of course, Enchant Weapon. I just almost forgot about Enchant Weapon. Enchant Weapon, we take the 5 points into melee attack speed, 2 points travel. Obviously, this is good though. It gives us chill chance, which we normally would not have. It gives us a passive chill chance of 10%, and then goes up to 20% when it is active, which is very nice because it gives us all of our chill chance we could ever need, considering that Shatter Strike hits 6 times per second and 6 times per attack. We want the added melee cold and increased melee damage. And then, of course, down here, we want the active duration so that it lasts longer, so we get more benefit from it. 1 point into Desperation. Why this matters is because Desperation, as you can tell, when I'm out of mana, I can proc Enchant Weapon, and I will be doing way more damage than before because I get about 200% increased damage from this one node, because it gives you 2% increased melee elemental damage per missing mana. So if we're missing 100% of our mana, when we utilize this, we will get a lot of damage. Then for our last 3 points, we just take 3 points into added melee fire, just more added damage. I don't know what else you could run. You could probably run Frozen Sparks instead. I don't know what else you could run. You could run Overloaded as well. It's really up to you as the viewer. Now that's pretty much it for skills. Let's get into the passive tree. All right, time to talk about the passive tree. So I'm going to go through how you would level this. Although, like I said, you would level with the Glacier instead, but this is what you would prioritize after you convert into Spellblade, right? Well, convert your stuff into Shatter Strike, right? So you want 8 points into Intelligence, 1 point travel into Elementalist, 1 point travel into Reactive Ward, 5 points into Mage Fury for the attack and cast speed, because it's important because we are casting and attacking. 5 points into Warden, as our ward retention is very important for this build. And then 10 points into Knowledge of Destruction, as our crit strike is very important. Now, of course, for Spellblade, we take 8 points into Infused Weapon, gives us 16 flat, because as our weapon starts out with 53 flat and 23 from our melee cold, gives us a lot of flat for 8 points. And then now we take 4 points travel into Arcane Warden, even though it's pretty strong considering it gives us 20 ward every single time we attack. Then 1 point travel into Warden's Echo. This does not matter whatsoever, but we get into the ward retention. Now we take 2 points travel into Frozen Steel. You can probably fill this out later, but as of right now, I just need 2 points travel. We get the increased melee attack speed and then more ward as well. Then we take 6 points into Prismatic Blade. You can probably focus more on this. Now, why Prismatic Blade is so strong with this build is because we get 6 cold damage for cold melee attacks, and we get 1 increase melee cold because of Shatter Strike, and 4% increased cold damage per point of dexterity. So this is technically 2 flat cold and 4% increased damage. Way better than this node, ironically, right? Now, of course, we move to Volca's Razor. The way Volca's Razor works is your melee attacks deal increased elemental damage if they cost 10 or more mana. This also affects damage dealt by all ailments that apply, which means if you're doing frostbite, it would work for frostbite as well, but we're going for hit damage. So this is just a free 150% increased damage. Then, of course, we take 10 points into mental fortitude for the intelligence and ward per second. And then we take 5 points into prodigy because it gives us a shit ton of ward per second, meaning that we get about 50 ward per second per 10 intelligence. Absolutely amazing. Now, of course, Blade Weaver. There is something to be said about Blade Weaver. The biggest issue with Blade Weaver is we're only attacking with like Mana Strike like twice, while we're attacking with Shatter Strike like 6 different times per attack or whatever. So our Blade Weaver is actually really poor for us, as we're not really stacking that many weaving stacks. So very poor for us. If you want to go play One Trick Pony Firebrand Flame Reave, you can go play that build. But if you want to be serious, these nodes are pretty papega. Now, of course, it is a lot of more damage, but if you're to play the build right, it would be fine. But like I said, this is not worth it for this specific build. Not for this build. It's a lot better for the Flame Reave version, right? Now, that's pretty much it for Spellblade and Mage. Now, if I were to have more points, you have like 16 more to go. What I would probably grab is, I would probably grab the cast speed with Teleport. I could see that. There's not really much else we could grab. Probably Intelligence. Yeah, Intelligence from Mage. Yeah, more Intelligence. That would be... grab all this intelligence. That would be what you do. 5 points into Mana Shell and as many points into intelligence as possible. That's what I would do if I had the rest of these points. So if you have a level 100 character, go right ahead, go crazy. Now, there is something to be said about Snap Freeze. Now, if you have good enough gear, you could run Snap Freeze over Fire Shield. Why is that important? Well, Snap Freeze is the only source of cold shred in the game right now, because it gives you 25% cold shred with this node, and it also freezes enemies. And if you're running the cold shred version, you can also run these nodes as well. You get more hit damage versus frozen enemies. This would probably be better for the Raider Axe version, but like I said, doesn't really matter. It's kind of like cool and all, but since we get 10% pen from this node, we could probably get more on the amulet, like I said, but my gearing is pretty poor because 24-hour challenge, you know, rank 5, 24 hours, yada, yada, yada. Like I said, that's pretty much it for the passive tree. Let's go over the gearing. All right, now we can talk about the gearing here. So for idols, these are your best in slots. The chance to gain ward on melee hit, I have really poor ones, as you can tell. I don't have really the best one. So I got to rank 200, like wave 200 with really shitty idols. You could get much better than this. I was under the challenge, so obviously. And then one Lightning Aegis when hit idol as well. But like I said, if I had my way, I would have Lightning Aegis when hit on my chest instead. So you would not have to run this on an idol, and you could run another chance to gain ward on melee hit. Now, if you do not care about ward, and you care about all the damage, you can go for crit chance idols, as that will raise your crit chance from like 30% to like 50%, and you'll feel your damage a lot more. But if you want survivability and heavy like running through arena, you definitely want the chance to gain ward on melee hit. Like I said, this build has a lot more potential than what I've shown off because 24 hours, right? Now for weapon, this is the most important part. You want the base crit. You want it on a deicide sword for the sword version. You want a Raider Axe for the Raider Axe version. You can run melee cold flat. And of course, frailty on melee hit, so you take less damage. And you want as much shred armor as possible. Shatter Strike and Shred Armor are friends this patch because you deal like 6 hits per second. So, and Armor Shred is very, very nice in this meta. It's very nice. Obviously, you can get it on gloves as well. Now, for helmet, you want int and dex everywhere. I like the Gilded Crown as it allows me to get a lot more crit than I would have before. But like I said, you could probably run the Warrior Retention one and do just fine. But like I said, if you want to go crit, you probably want the Gilded Crown. Probably a lot less useful if you're running the Raider X version, because to be honest, to reach maximum efficiency, you would need like 50% crit overall. So 29% is very close. Now, obviously, crit strike avoidance, but the main thing you want is int and dex on every single prefix you can possibly get. Now, for amulet, pretty shoddy amulet. I have increased dodge rating. You would want this on a crit chance amulet probably, or a fizz / necrotic res amulet. Doesn't really matter. You just want dodge. Chest, dodge, int. Instead of that flat dodge, you want the lightning aegis when hit instead. From the shocking aegis, the actual mod lightning aegis when hit on the chest. I just was not lucky at all, so I had to run with what I had. This is a very shitty chest. You could have much better than this. Now, and of course, mental damage, it's very favorable for the ratios, for the suffix, and you'd want a ward retention chest instead of the mana gained as ward. But like I said, very, very strict guidelines. Now, shield, you want as much block chance and as much block effectiveness as possible on a Solarum shield base. For the suffixes, you want res and dodge. Res and dodge. Remember, we're not using our prefixes for our res because we need our prefixes for other stats. So you definitely want to cap our res with other means possible with suffixes. Now, for ring, int, and crit, crit's better than dex because crit gets us closer to 50% crit. Since we're a crit build, crit rings are the best. Silver rings are the best base, and int and res. Crit ring for the other one as well. As you can see, I'm using a lot of it for my res. So for belt, you want increased dodge rating on potion use, because why not? There's nothing else you could possibly use. Critical strike avoidance as well, because you want critical strike avoidance. You want it capped. And of course, dodge rating flat. But mainly, you really want that dodge percentage on belt because it's one of the only other places you can get it. Now for gloves, we have int, dex, shred, and flat and dodge, but you could put a res here. Doesn't really matter. The chance to shred armor on hit is kind of like okay. I got a really good pair of boots this time around. We got dex, int, tier 6 critical strike avoidance and movement speed. Obviously, with this, instead of that dex, you would want dodge percentage, but I was not lucky enough to get that, so we are just using flat dex. And of course, with our Ancient Tomb, you would want like dex, dodge rating, and res. You kind of want a balance of your dex and int. You kind of want like half and half. You want like 50 dex, 50 intelligence in the end. That's where you want to be around because, like I said, dex is very strong with Shatter Strike due to its favorable scaling. But you obviously want int as well for the ward retention. So it's all a balance. That's pretty much it for the gearing. Like I said, loot filter will be in the description. That being said, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye.
Those who made the ultimate